Now, the US African Leaders Summit has been going on in the United States of America, where several African leaders, African heads of states, went to the United States to meet and talk, discuss about the relationships between the US and Africa, mostly economic relationships, because I think that's what will make the head of state, like most of African head of state, leave the continent to go and talk about. And a lot of things happened in the summit, but one of the things that caught the attention is that it looks like, okay, I don't know what you think, but it looks like the United States is under pressure and they are fighting so hard to retain their position in Africa. And you know, in the past few years, you can see that China has taken over Africa and is a public secret right now. You see that China has taken over Africa. Many African leaders prefer to work with China than they would have wanted to work with America and other European countries. You can see things that have been happening in Central African Republic, things that have been happening in the other regions where France is exiting and people are forcing France to exit, and they prefer either China or Russia. So the two countries are China and Russia. Like China when it comes to funding, like direct funding anything, just giving African leaders money. And then Russia when it comes to equipment like guns, armory, and everything that is around fighting and everything. You see that those two countries have like managed to take America's position and most of European countries' position in Africa. But President Joe Biden met African leaders in the US African Leaders Summit 2022, and one of the things that he talked about was he promised to visit sub-Saharan Africa, I think next year, that's 2023. And he also, of course, he promised to fund them with millions of dollars, and that is something that, of course, most leaders really want. Mostly African leaders, they look at money so importantly. And also there's a statement that President Biden made. I don't know if I can get it here on my laptop here. Let me try to find it here. I think CNN broadcast reported about this, and of course you can see the article in CNN. You can know what I'm really talking about, that Biden welcomes African leaders for a summit as China and Russia expand influence. So it shows you how much these people are under pressure. But there's a statement here. Okay, this is exactly what I want to show you, that when Africa succeeds, the United States succeeds. Quite frankly, the whole world succeeds as well. So that's what Biden said during the appearance when he met the African leaders in the US. But going back to what I was talking about the attention, like the tension and the pressure that America is scared. Like they really see that China is taking over Africa. And one of the reasons that I think, me personally, that most African leaders prefer China and other Asian founders over the European and America, to be precise. I think it's because America's funding comes with a lot of terms, like many terms. They will tell you, they'll give you terms, they'll give you conditions, of course. And I think that's why these African leaders prefer dealing with the Chinese that don't care about rights. They won't tell you that you have to have a human rights history in your country. They don't care if you're a dictator or not. They don't care. Actually, I think these guys, Chinese and the other people from the other part of the world, prefer even working with you when you are a dictator or something like that. And when it comes to America and the Europeans, they always want to talk about human rights. They always want to know if you're defining human rights in your country. They always want to know if, like, for example, the LGBT community, the lesbians and gay rights. That is something that the Europeans and Americans have been looking at in the past. Democracy, they have been trying, of course, to show that they really care about democracy and everything. But when you look at how President Biden didn't even care about anything around that, and even in his speech, you see that he concentrated so much on the funding, on promising good things to the leaders, more than even speaking about the insurgencies, speaking about the problems, the wars, and everything that is being caused by dictatorship and all the things that leaders have been doing in the past elections and everything that is going on in Africa. It was left behind, and his speech was just around supporting the leaders, supporting the countries, visiting the leaders, loving the countries. And this shows you how much pressure America and many European countries are at in retaining their positions in Africa. They really want to take back their position in Africa. And I really think it's really going to be hard for America mostly. There's also something that they talked about in this particular summit. There's a lady that's made a point, a very, very important point. She was one of the people that came from the American side. And she said that China and the rest of the countries, what they do when they go to fund a country, they always come with their people. Like they come with the Chinese investors and tell them, they ask the country to give them land, to give them electricity, to give them tax holidays, and offer them incentives for that, so that these people can invest well and make money in these countries. But for America, they haven't been doing this, and I think that's why that's one of the reasons I think they have not taken over Africa as a continent, because of course America has been funding Africa for a long time through education, through NGO, through a lot of things. But I think now they want to start funding just business, or mostly giving it almost 70% or 80%, because that's what China and Russia and other countries are doing. They fund business. They fund you, they fund your projects, but they also fund business. They want to have their businesses in your country. They want to be running businesses in your country, and they want you to support them too, the way they are really supporting you. So I think that's a good idea. Of course, President Biden promised to come to Africa. He's going to visit some of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa.